films, cassettes. Gosh, I miss those times, man.
We've covered the history of the Mi-28N recently on the channel, so I'm not going to bore you again with the backstory, but in the latest update, we've had the Mi-28NM added to the game, with the N standing for Night and the M standing for Modernised. This added a top-mounted radar, as well as new optical sensors at the front of the helicopter. While this was great in real life, does it make a difference in War Thunder? And is it worth grinding? Well, the Mi-28NM is a battle rating 11.0 rank 7 helicopter in the Soviet tech tree. To unlock the helicopter, you'll have to grind out 400,000 research points before purchasing it for 1,030,000 Silver Lions. After this, you'll have to train the crew for the cost of an additional 300,000 Silver Lions. We then go on to the repair cost, and in realistic battles, surprisingly, it's very low at only 2,727 Silver Lions. As with most other helicopters, the expert and ace qualifications aren't really that important, but regardless, it costs 1,030,000 Silver Lions for the expert and 3,000 Golden Eagles for the ace. Going on to the modifications, and when playing realistic battles and using a premium account, you can expect an RP modifier of 476% and a Silver Lion modifier of 285%. In terms of customization, there is only one camouflage available, the stock camo. So lads, is this new Soviet helicopter worth the grind? And is it different from the Ka-52, Ka-50 or the Mi-28N? Well, stick around to find out. Moving on to the engine and survivability, and the Mi-28NM is powered by two Klimov VK1250P engines. They produce 2,450 horsepower and can get the helicopter up to a top speed of 300 km per hour at an altitude of 1,000 meters. Although the helicopter does have a flight ceiling of 5,400 meters. Although, just with every other helicopter in the game, you want to stay as low and fast as possible and not climb up high. This is to give you enough maneuvering energy so you can avoid enemy incoming missiles. We then move on to the survivability, and we have several layers of armour on this helicopter. But first, we have a 10mm thick plate of aluminium. This is backed up by a 16mm ceramic plate. This aluminium and ceramic composite should protect you from heavy machine gun rounds, but nothing in greater strength. We then also have bulletproof glass, which is 42mm thick, again providing effective protection against heavy caliber machine guns. And that covers it for the engine and survivability. Generally speaking, the dominance of attack helicopters is not determined by their speed, more their manoeuvrability. And while the Mi-28NM isn't as agile as the American Apaches, they certainly have better fine inputs than the Kamov Ka-50s. Although they don't have the speed of the Kamovs, they certainly feel better to fly. In my opinion, the Mi-28NM flies and feels like a helicopter should. And let's be honest lads, they look amazing. We now come on to the weapons, and the Mi-28NM actually does feature a radar system, mounted above the rotors, just like the American Apache. This is the N-025. It is a search radar, featuring look-down capability. This is great for detecting incoming air targets, as well as finding ground targets. You can program this radar to automatically lock onto a target. This is rather useful for large open maps, but on tight city maps, it's rather redundant. The helicopter also features an MAW, or a missile approach warning. This automatically detects the launch of incoming missiles, and automatically deploys flares to counter them. Speaking of which, this helicopter can carry 128 flares, giving you pretty good survivability against infrared and semi-active radar homing missiles. The tank also has third generation thermal sights, which makes acquiring targets very easy indeed. But how do we actually kill targets in this helicopter? Well, to start, we have our 30mm 2A40 cannon, the same as on the original Mi-28. This carries 250 rounds and fires 546 rounds per minute. It can traverse 110 degrees either side of the nose and has 40 degrees of gun depression. You already know how good this gun is, so I'm not going to go over it again. We can then carry 23mm GSH-23L gun pods, one on either wing, with 500 rounds per gun. Surprisingly enough for this helicopter, we can carry four 500kg fab bombs. Each one of these bombs contains 340 kilograms of TNT, giving them a destructive radius of 14 meters. These can be pretty good for bombing at the start of a game, but the explosive is so big that you usually end up damaging yourself in the process. We can also carry a healthy selection of dumbfire rockets. But first, we have the S-8KOs. These travel at 650 meters per second and contain a high explosive anti-tank warhead, which has 1.69 kilos of TNT. This gives them a constant 420mm of penetration. We can also carry the massive S-130F rockets, containing 10.6 kilograms of TNT, giving them 63mm of explosive penetration. We then come on to the air-to-ground missiles, of which we have 3. Up first, we have the 9M120-1 attackers, the same as on the other Mi-28. They travel at 550 meters per second and have a high explosive anti-tank warhead containing 4.48 kilos of TNT, giving them 800mm of constant penetration at all ranges. We then have the 9K127 Vickers. These are the same missiles as found on the Ka-50 and Ka-52. They are multifunctional, being able to kill ground targets as well as having a proximity fuse warhead, allowing them to target enemy helicopters and enemy jets. The missiles themselves travel at 610 meters per second and have a maximum range of 10 kilometers, 4 kilometers more than either of our other 2 missiles. They have a high explosive anti-tank warhead containing 5.16 kilograms of TNT, giving them 800mm of penetration. The Vickers are very powerful at the minute and are probably the best air-to-ground missiles currently in the game. And finally, we have the 9M123 Chrysanthemum missiles. These travel at 550 meters per second and have a maximum range of 6 kilometers. They have a huge TNT warhead filled with 6.16 kilograms of TNT. These missiles are incredibly powerful. The high explosive anti-tank warhead giving them 1200mm of penetration, the equivalent of the Hellfire K missiles. While these chrysanthemums are incredibly powerful, you can only carry a total of 8 of them, whereas you can carry 12 Vickers and 16 attackers. Personally, I'd go for the 12 Vickers, as they give the best performance, both in terms of anti-tank and anti-air. We then come on to the anti-air missiles. These are the 9M3NM Iglas. These were developed from man-pads or man-palatable air defense systems, and are pretty weak in general. They have an all-aspect lock range of 6 kilometers, and have a maximum load of 10 Gs. While they're perfectly fine for killing targets going directly away from you, or directly towards you, against an opponent that is maneuvering, they are basically useless. So you should always try to run away from an enemy jet, rather than try and fight it. And that covers it for the weapons of the Mi-28NM. As I said, choosing the 12 Vickers, as well as combining them with the rockets of your choice, is probably the best loadout for this helicopter. As with all helicopters in War Thunder, you want to stay low, pop up, fire a missile, get a kill, and then relocate. And to be honest, when I'm in a tank battle, I don't even bother taking any of the Igla missiles, because if you already have the Vickers, then you don't actually need them. Before we get into the conclusion, let me know down below what you guys think about the Mi-28NM, and which helicopter, tank, plane or ship you guys like to see reviewed next. To conclude, this helicopter is probably the best helicopter currently in the Soviet territory. It combines the best things about the Ka-52 with the best things about the Mi-28. You have the chin-mounted 30mm autocannon, whereas the Ka-52 is mounted on the side and has limited traverse. You have the excellent Vickers missiles of the Ka-52, but you have the performance and look of the Mi-28. While personally, the Mi-28NM will be my go-to helicopter now, I don't really think it is worth grinding if you aren't going to take helicopters seriously. 400,000 RP is a lot of grinding, and the differences between the Ka-50 and the Mi-28N aren't that great, so just pick whichever one you like. The radar on top of the Mi-28NM is a nice feature, but it's largely a gimmick, just like the Apache. You'll never really use it in battle, you'll be using the thermal and actually looking for targets rather than getting radar. So yeah, it's good for me as a content creator where I can just ask for the helicopter instead of having to grind for it. But if you're the average Joe who's grinding every night to get it, then it isn't really that big of a step up in performance really. The Vickers missiles on the Mi-28 airframe are really nice. Grinding out 400,000 helicopter research points is a massive shot in the dick really. So yeah, I like it, but I wouldn't really recommend grinding it. It's a good helicopter, but it's a lot of effort. Kinda like having a girlfriend really. Alright lads, I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you did, please do consider subscribing to the channel. You can also leave a like and a comment, which again, also boosts me in the algorithm, helping my channel to grow. You can also follow me on Twitter, as well as Twitch. And if you're a huge fan of the channel, you can become a member of the YouTube channel, which will give you a unique icon next to your comment, in both comments under videos and on YouTube live streams. Once again, thank you very much for watching this far into the video lads, and I'll see you in the next one.